Hello and good evening, all. Welcome to the tea house. This is your humble proprietor, Belial. Once again, to just make a video that is just a discussion video where I share my unsolicited opinions to the general public. You know, and if it's not something you're interested in, you can always scroll off. It's totally fine. But let's get started with what's been on my mind. So, one of the things I've noticed when engaging in the political process itself, not necessarily political discussions, that's a whole other thing, but the process itself, which is, voting and picking candidates and the like. One thing that I have noticed when going into it is this very apathetic approach that people have towards the political process in and of itself. That being said, that the political establishment within this country often just expects people to just go along with who they provide, the cookie cutter candidates. And when somebody goes against that grain, it's certainly not welcomed by the establishment whatsoever. That can be seen in the New York mayoral race where Mandani had won the election. The brother was definitely not the establishment's choice for that election, but he won, and that essentially is what happens. It's almost the Trump effect in and of itself, telling people over and over not to do something, so some people will just vote because you're telling them not to, but also someone who is, seen as an outsider and is against the grain, which is what Trump originally was and what people want to see. Mandani himself actually went out and discussed with people who had voted for Trump and built his campaign around helping out those people who voted for mostly economic reasons. That being said, I do find the Democratic Party in itself to be the focus of my ire when it comes to this particular I guess, thought process I've been having, or example, I would say. I'm not sure where I was going with that, but regardless, you often see the vote blue no matter who sort of crowd, essentially, where these people who are funded by AIPAC and other Zionists and corporatists to essentially run on a Democratic ticket while not actually putting forward any things that would be stereotypically seen as the party of the granola people, essentially. The way that the stereotypical Republican would view the Democrats as being are not what established Democrats are. They're essentially just corporatists who will spout very mundane ideas of vague ideas of like my I can't be racist, my my gardener is Hispanic or something like that, to those effects, or my I have servants or something like that. Very, very much establishment. Even the people they have who are supposed to be the young, energetic new face of the Democratic Party aren't, in that fact. They're mostly very much bought out. David Hogg was an example of that to some extent, although they even pushed him out because, of course, you can't have a young person actually win an election like that. No. I believe during his race when he was running for public office, he was pushed aside for someone who was quite older than him. Nothing against him, like, specifically. It's just kind of an example because he too, has the talking points that are given to them by the establishment, essentially. I don't participate very much in mainstream political discourse, at least that being in the fact that I am not a member of a mainstream political party, and I do not vote in primaries. I will vote in general elections, the actual election itself. However, I don't vote in the primaries because I'm not a member of any of the political parties. However, there's the reason that I'm not is because I refuse to be party to to a system not that I don't agree with, but a system I believe to be fundamentally anti-human, and essentially evil. If a system can be evil, essentially, because we're dealing with the mundanity of cruelty, which is the gears that run society, not necessarily the individual evils of society, but the mundanity of it, the bureaucracy that is indifferently cruel to people. But the vote blue no matter who people definitely do specifically annoy me, who, especially coming to the topic of Zionists within the United States government, they often will blatantly be two-faced in their approach to political discourse, espousing very progressive ideas while at the same time supporting an apartheid state on the other side of the planet. What that has to do with, helping in domestic policy, I don't know, but neither here nor there. The state itself that I'm referring to actually is a detriment to the United States in diplomatic and other international affairs. Definitely kind of a waste of resources, but neither here nor there, I suppose. But specifically, I would say the posturing towards that. I remember I was at a Bernie Sanders rally quite some time ago, and I was in the front row, which was difficult to do. It was during Ramadan. It was very hot out, and I had just left the mosque from afternoon prayer, and I had been in this particular city specifically for this event. It was a very hot day, I remember, because I had been fasting, and it was close to 100 plus degrees out, and I'm in a line, even though I was there early. I was the first in line, and I was probably about 5 to 6 feet away from Sanders and the other speakers during the event. But I was not impressed by it. Specifically, I was not impressed by his mentioning of the need to stop political purity tests when it comes to voting for Democratic politicians. Of course, the political purity test in and of itself is that the lives of Muslims matter less in the eyes of the United States government than the money they get from that particular state. Whether or not those Muslims are Arab, the lives themselves don't necessarily matter. They want their money, and they are willing to commit genocide, or at least if not directly commit, then essentially just sweep under the rug and cover, therefore, to keep that money or whatever they're being blackmailed with, essentially. But that particularly irked me in that regard, to which I just didn't really pay much attention to the speech itself. I was very annoyed by that. I did like some of the stuff he had to say about rent control, but this was my immediate thought process of it while being there was, this is the opposition. Brother, we're getting sent to the gulag if this is our opposition to fascism. But it's not opposition. The establishment, AOC, and Senator Kelly and all the like, they're definitely not actual opposition. Senator Kelly, of course, from my own home state, being seen as something of quite, the topic of discourse lately, how he's standing up to Trump and he's going to, whatever. The man has taken thousands and thousands of dollars from AIPAC. I certainly do not care anything that has. Let them fight, as they said in the Godzilla movie. Essentially, I just do not participate in mainstream political discourse and the fact of voting in primaries, simply because I don't want to be a member of either party. And some can criticize that, and perhaps I'm in the wrong. I do recognize the idea of harm reduction and working within the system itself, but I do not know. I simply ascribe to the ideas stated in the movie The Kingdom of Heaven, where King Baldwin II speaks to, I forget the actor, but the guy who played Jon Snow, and he says, when you stand before God, you cannot say, I was told to do, or that virtue was not convenient at the time. You must remember that your soul is in your keeping. And I tried to keep to that specifically. I tried to remember that my soul is in my keeping. And although I am not a perfect man, I have definitely done some things I'm not proud of, and I think that's most people. I've had my dark eras. However, I do like to think that this would be one less thing that I'll have to answer for when I do meet the most merciful one. Inshallah, if I do meet the most merciful one, we all do not know what lies for us. However, that's is my main irk, is that the system itself is anti-human and seeks to separate man from his soul, which is essentially the story of the United States almost in some regard. You're the villain in somebody's story, and the United States is definitely the villain in a lot of stories, though there are many good things about the Republic, and I do describe myself as somebody with a strong Jeffersonian foundation to their politics. However, as the saying by Brother Ali, which is a rap artist, I liked some of his music. Try to separate a man from his soul, and you only strengthen his and lose your own, which is essentially where we find the United States going. I think Malcolm X warned us of the suicidal path America was on, and I really do see it in that regard sometimes. If we simply do not fight against the political atrophy, and we demand better from the political parties, or perhaps we just do away with them entirely, which is easier said than done. Essentially, there is no United States government, in the fact that essentially it is just two political parties that is running everything. That's the two-party system in of itself. But I don't know. I'm definitely not in the camp of vote blue no matter who, and I do not vote for Republicans. Except in very rare circumstance, I have voted for some specific offices, but it's because I know their politics of the individual, and I know that I agree with them and that they are good and decent Americans. However, I tend to stay away from voting from Republicans in general, as I am disgusted by their political party as it exists today. I'm not sure who I'm disgusted with more, to be honest. The Republican Party is repugnant, but the Democratic Party itself is rancid. And I'm not one of those both sides kind of person. I think they are both one and the same in the regards to the two major political parties. But I suppose, my main crux of this particular talk is just saying that I believe that we gamble our soul as a nation each time we partake in the charade that has become American mainstream politics. But I don't know. This is just something that I kind of wanted to discuss. And, my last video doing a random discussion like this seems to be doing okay, so might as well put something out. The individual in the photo is Sun Yat-sen, who was the first president of the Republic of China. Though a controversial figure in some circles, he is one of the only people who are honored both by the communists and the nationalists within Chinese discourse as the founder of the revolution. He is actually one of my favorite politicians of all time. Very interesting fellow in general. I don't know why I put him in there. I just felt like, this guy seems interesting. I'll use him as a background. I need to be less lazy about these, but thank you for sitting with me, and thank you for, chatting. This has been Belial, your humble proprietor, and thank you for visiting the tea house today with me, guys.